What's going on, Fantasy Alarm Nation? Super Bowl week is upon us for Super Bowl 57. My name is Justin Fensterman, along with Matt Selz and Ryan Hallam. It's the family meetup every single week, the Family Times podcast. Guys, I'm really excited for this game between the Chiefs and the Eagles. I think what you're getting is a nice high-powered offense versus one of the best defenses on the other side. Another team, by the way, with Jalen Hurts, who's been one of the biggest talks of the season, with his rushing upside, with what he could do on the ground. A lot of unique factors playing into this game. We got to talk about some props. We got to make some predictions, talk some expectations, maybe even the halftime show if we like Rihanna. And let's talk with Rihanna's biggest fan, Ryan Hallam. What's going on, Hallam? Getting my umbrella.
I don't know any song. Although we talked a little bit before, I guess I do know a couple songs. I just don't know them by title or that she sings them. So I guess I do know them. I am, always looking forward to the Super Bowl because of the fanfare and the get-together and the food and fun and football, of course, but I'm not excited. God, it's not that the teams are bad. I think it will be a fun game. I'm hoping it's not like 16-13. That would be terrible, but I certainly have as discussed last week, still a bad taste in my mouth about the NFC Championship game and also who won the AFC Championship game. So this is not my favorite two teams, but the Super Bowl is always a good watch.
What about you, Selz? Are you a little bit more excited than the lowest possible level on the bar?
Yeah, I'm not like tripping over the bar. I'm pretty excited about this one. I think it's a pretty good matchup. My wife is a Commanders, formerly Redskins, formerly Washington football team fan.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's rough.
And so her next favorite team from the NFC East is the Eagles, actually.
How does that work?
I don't know, because
They're rivals.
She liked Donovan McNabb. Okay, she likes Andy Reid, who's now obviously in Kansas City. So, she's pretty happy about it. I'm at this point a pseudo Chiefs fan, I guess. I mean, I've been out in their viewing area for like 18 years at this point. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty good matchup. I find it very interesting to break down. We got high-powered defense, high-powered offense, and we'll see if the Chiefs' defense can show up for one game. Because if they can show up for one game, then this is really going to be spectacular. So, I don't know what to make of the halftime shows anymore. We were talking before that we'd rather they just sing 4 songs and then be done with it instead of trying to cram everybody on the planet on stage and doing memeable moments like Weekend getting lost in the lights and whatever else.
But it's the sizzle factor, Selz. It's the great spectacular.
My other issue is that since Janet Jackson had that incident 20 years ago now, we can't have Rihanna reenacting the music video for Stay where she was in a bathtub.
Who cares about that at this point? Honestly, whatever. It was a wardrobe mishap. Who cares?
I know. I'm just saying, but because of that, we now can't have Rihanna reenact the video for Stay, the song she sings. She's in a bathtub singing her heart out, right? That would be fun to see on TV.
That's on a different channel, Matt.
I'm just saying it would have been nice, but no, now she's just gonna play 30 seconds of one song and 30 seconds of another song, and I don't know. I'll probably tune it out for about 25. Can we get Celebrity Deathmatch back?
Wow.
Speaking of another channel, one that used to show music videos, can we get Celebrity Deathmatch back for the halftime? Because when I was a kid, we would just turn to MTV for the halftime and watch Celebrity Deathmatch Royal Rumble.
What was his name? I'm Johnny U with my broadcast partner Neil Diamond and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. I think we need to get that back.
That was Ryan. You ever watch Celebrity Deathmatch?
Yeah, I know. I was just gonna say they brought Beavis and Butthead back. You never know. It could be anything, or even Bud Bowl. That was even fun with a little Budweiser. You guys might be too young for that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people are gonna turn on the Puppy Bowl.
That's before, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
what I think. It's
No.
because
Is it before or is it during the halftime show?
it's generally before because my dog goes nuts for it. So we usually watch it in DVR. She's like all over the TV. There's like nose prints on the TV. I'm like, if you knock this TV off of this stand, I'm gonna kill you. So yeah, it's usually before. They might do something at halftime too, but it's generally during the day, and we DVR it for the dog. Which I can't believe I just said that sentence.
Well, I'll say this here with the halftime show, going back to that. I just don't understand, guys, and this is the conversation we keep referring to. I don't understand why we have to keep building on top of everything else. And we can't just be happy that Rihanna is essentially like she's been kind of out of the limelight for the last few years, now kind of making this grand return and everything. Why that's not good enough? Like, seriously, you have to make sure you're adding 2 or 3 artists. You've got to do the overproduction. What happened to the music being good enough? Let's appreciate the artist.
I think it was Coldplay, honestly, because remember that year was Coldplay and like everyone's like, this is going to suck. And then they pulled in Beyonce and like 14 other people because they thought Coldplay was going to suck. And I feel like ever since then, like a couple years ago when it was Snoop and Eminem and Dr. Dre and Kendrick Lamar, we knew it was going to be like a whole group. I thought that was really good. But right. I don't know if I feel like when the year was Coldplay and they like pulled in everyone else that week. I feel like maybe that was part of it.
Like the year they had Katy Perry
would have just been fine.
Like the Katy Perry year was good. I thought she was fine. She had a lot of different sets and everything like that to go along with it. A lot of different scenes for different parts of the songs. I thought that was fine.
Yeah, Left Shark for life.
Absolutely. So guys, let's start by going over the basics here. Who's winning this game? The Eagles are favored by 1.5. You have to assume now, 2 weeks removed, that Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, with whatever injuries they're facing, because I don't believe that Patrick Mahomes has a high ankle sprain. I think it's just a normal ankle sprain that was in pain during the AFC Championship, and that's it. High ankle sprain. You can't really move as well as he was able to move here. So assuming that both of these guys are healthy going in, I mean, what do you think, Selz? Who is winning this game? You've been doing the game previews all year long on fantasyalarm.com. Who's winning Super Bowl 57?
I think it comes down to the Chiefs' defense, to be perfectly honest. If the Chiefs' defense can muster any sort of stopping of the Eagles' rushing attack and can contain Jalen Hurts' rushing efforts, I think this game is pretty close. If the Chiefs' defense does not do very well against the various rushers for the Eagles, whether it be Jalen Hurts or Miles Sanders or Kenneth Gainwell. I don't know how they keep because here's the thing. Juju Smith-Schuster is still questionable. Kadarius Toney is still questionable. Whether they'll play, I don't know. I would like to assume that they would try. But if they're not 100%, then the Eagles' 3 top corners are in a big advantage. Mecole Hardman, I believe, is not going to play, if I heard that correctly.
They put him back on IR, yeah.
Yeah, they put him back on IR, and the Eagles can stop the rushing attack well enough that Pacheco may not find enough room to really make a difference on the ground. So I think this game pivots on the Chiefs' defense. It was the worst of the playoff defenses when it was 16. When everybody made the playoffs, it was still the worst defense. I think that's what it comes down to.
I actually agree 100% with Matt. Everything you just said, really. I mean, because we preface this by saying it's a high-powered offense against a high-powered defense, but the Eagles have a pretty damn high-powered offense too. They haven't really been tested the last 2 weeks going into the playoffs, and they kind of limped in with that last game against the Giants and the 2 games with Gardner Minshew. But let's not forget the first 14 weeks of the season where they were just rolling over everyone, and like Matt said, the question marks at the Chiefs wide receivers, who already aren't mega stars anyway, but Darius Slay and James Bradbury and even Avonte Maddox are really good corners. Chiefs could be down L'Jarius Sneed. He's still in concussion protocol. If he's out too, that's really going to hurt. Then they're relying on two corners that are like rookies and second-year guys, Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson. So,
you seem to
but
be.
There's always the Patrick Mahomes factor. I mean, that will probably keep it close. I do think the Eagles will win, but I think if it's going to be one-sided, and by one-sided I mean 10 points or more, I can't see a blowout like Tampa Bay did a couple of years ago. But I think it's going to be 10 points or more. It'll probably be on Philly's side. Other than that, I think it should be a pretty close one.
Yeah, a couple things on L'Jarius Sneed. When he got injured in the AFC Championship game, they mentioned he had played 96% of defensive snaps for the Chiefs prior to him getting hurt. So that's clearly a a locked-in starter that may not go. One thing I will say about the Chiefs offense and being essentially, I don't want to say matchup proof because they did lose a few times and a few defenses did manage to slow them down. But I will say that last week I wrote a piece about a prop that will we see both teams score in every quarter of the game, right? Odds are probably not. But in referencing this, I wanted to see just how close teams came. Well, in 17 in all of the regular season games and postseason games for the Chiefs, they have scored in at least 3 quarters of every single game. They've scored in 4 quarters, I think 6 times. The Eagles, on the other hand, have only managed to score in at least 3 quarters 8 times this year. So you can have periods where you shut them down. And there was some pretty okay defenses that were doing that. So, again, though, I still think it's going to come down to if the Chiefs' defensive line can stop the Eagles' rushing attack, then this game is close.
Now, let me ask you this, and I don't know if you looked into it. Was a lot of it the Eagles didn't score in the fourth quarter because they were already up like 31-6?
No, there were games where, like, for example, they scored 24 points against, and I have to go back and check this. Let me see if I can pull it up right now. Maybe against the they scored like 24 or 27 points. Oh, I think it was the first game against Washington. Yeah, they beat the Commanders 24-8 in that game. They scored 24 points in the second quarter and didn't score it yet. And the Commanders scored 8 points in the fourth quarter because they scored a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. But, like, they put up 24 points in one quarter, and then it's not like they backed off. It was, they seem to be a spurty offense, if that's a word. I don't know if that's a word or not, but, like,
spurty.
They just go on spurts.
I like that.
So it's a little hard to tell exactly, like, when they're going to have a spurt, but it was just interesting to see, like the game against the Vikings early in the season when they won 24-7. There was no scoring by either team in the second half of that game. It was 24-7 at halftime, and that's what it ended. So it's kind of a hit and miss offense for the Eagles, if we can call it that, after scoring 470 something points this year.
I got one thing between what both of you just said, because Selz, it seems like you ultimately right now you're siding on Kansas City's end of it. Ryan, you seem, as you said, you think that Philly's going to win this game. One of the things that you said, Ryan, makes me a little bit fearful of Philly, because if you had asked me when we were making our predictions on the site about who was going to win what playoff game and how far everyone was going to go, I would have said the Eagles, no question, if I knew, or you said, hey, if this was what it's going to end up being, because I had Bills versus Eagles in my predictions on the site. But the one thing, Ryan, that you said that really stands out to me, which is what's stopping me, what's making me a little bit fearful of the Eagles, the lack of competition. That's the problem. We're talking about now 4 weeks, because you've got to include these last 2 weeks as well, because it does take you out of game flow. We're talking about weeks without competition for the Eagles here, where the Chiefs, you know what their offense can bring. Now, I go back to, and I wrote a little content piece about this, about first half point props in previous Super Bowls. And in their last Super Bowl, there really wasn't a lot of score. There wasn't much scoring at all in the first half of that game. And then all of a sudden, the Chiefs in the fourth quarter exploded. And that's how it ended with the Chiefs. So I think about that. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, I just believe in Kansas City's offense with what we're seeing. I'm the one that's saying I don't think Patrick Mahomes has a true high ankle sprain. Even though he's limping, he's moving around too well to have a high ankle sprain, an injury that's normally 4 to 6 weeks. I just feel if there's anyone that could break through a good defense, it's this guy. And I'm siding with the Chiefs now over this. I just feel that between the Eagles' lack of competition, believing Mahomes isn't as injured as it's being put out as he is, he's had weeks to further let his body be preserved. I'm giving it to the Chiefs by an edge. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game too, and I'm going to bring up a prop in a few minutes that indicates why.
Well, I'll say the competition is, questionable. I mean, all right, the 49ers defense had to take every chance they could and, had all kinds of penalties called against them and everything. They're still a pretty good defense. The defense didn't have the injury. It was the quarterback who had the injury. And they still, by the end, they put up 31 points. But they were moving the ball in the first half against their defense fairly well. And they just blew the doors off the Giants. Granted, were the Giants the greatest playoff team? No, but their defense was okay. And they just got completely obliterated. So I don't know if it was just so much as I don't know, because we went in the playoffs and like, oh, can the Eagles just turn it back on? Because week 16 and 17 was Gardner Minshew, and week 18 Hurts just barely did enough to get home field. But the fact that they just obliterated really the two teams in the playoffs, I don't know that they're that bad. It's not like they beat Houston. So
we're talking about playoff teams here, so we got to give them credit. They're in the playoffs. I'll also bring this too. Let me bring this up quickly, Selz, as well. Mahomes as well. Maybe this also comes into factor as well. He's experienced in this big game. Everybody in the world, in the sports world, people don't give a damn about sports or watching this game. Mahomes has the reps when it comes to this stage. This is a stage unlike any other. Something I feel like when it comes to sports, because we're so engulfed in the stats and the fantasy sports angles of it, you forget, though, this game being watched by everybody there. Commercials being sold for millions of dollars to air just a couple of times. Mahomes has reps in this department.
And Andy Reid.
And the Chiefs coaching staff.
Yeah. They got obliterated by the Bucs, but the offensive line just couldn't do anything. That was the whole reason they got killed. Mahomes just never had a chance.
Right. But to Fensty's point about the competition, I think he's talking about the defense. Because if you go through the Eagles' entire schedule, they didn't exactly face a murderer's row of quarterbacks and offenses. Like, they played Jared Goff in week 1 and allowed 35 points to the Lions offense. Then they played Kirk Cousins. Sure, it's, Cousins puts up numbers, but in key spots, he's iffy, right? Commanders, Jags. Yeah, sure, they played Kyler Murray. Okay, but the first time they played the Cowboys, Dak was hurt. So they got Cooper Rush. They got rookie quarterbacks for the Steelers. Then they played the Texans. Then the Commanders didn't have a quarterback by the second time they played them. The Colts were a disaster when they played in week 11. That was the first week of Jeff Saturday's deal, or the last time their previous coach, whatever it was. Sure, they played Aaron Rodgers. Okay, that's a second quality quarterback. The Titans, they run the ball. It's Derrick Henry, right? Like, does it matter if Ryan Tannehill is in the backfield? No, not really. The Giants, they blew the doors off of them the first time. The Bears were Justin Fields and nobody else. Then the second time they played the Cowboys, it was Dak, and they lost. They allowed 40 points to the Dak-led Cowboys. Then they played nobody at quarterback for the Saints. The Giants finished the season and didn't play Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley because they had nothing to gain. Then when they did play their starters, the Giants were terrible. And then, I'm sorry again, Brian, but the Niners didn't have a quarterback. So they haven't played any competent offenses basically all season at the time that they played them. The Niners before that were very competent, right? But like they didn't play Dak twice. They didn't play Like, if you look at the Chiefs, their defensive stats aren't great, but they also played Josh Allen twice. They've played Joe Burrow twice. They've played, Trevor Lawrence when they had won 8 straight games. Okay, like the Chargers twice with Justin Herbert. They played the Niners when they were rolling on offense. So like,
that's when they had McCaffrey for 3 days.
Yeah, I mean,
but
like the difference between the quarterbacks that they actually played Trevor Lawrence twice, by the way, because they played him in the regular season and they played him in the playoffs. So I think that's the difference there in terms of, yes.
If you're gonna downplay Kirk Cousins, then you got to downplay Justin Herbert because he did not have a good season.
No, that's okay. Fair.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I just think, these aren't guys we've never heard of. Darius Slay's an All-Pro. James Bradbury's had a great career. Hassan Reddick is like on another planet by himself right now. They have quality players. It's not like
I'm not saying the Eagles' defense is craptastic and it's all inflated. They're very good, but I'm just saying, like, is there a chance that their defense, if they had played, if the schedules were flipped, I think both teams could have a top 10 defense.
Well, and I think I've said this before on this show. I think part of the Chiefs' defense problem is the other team is always behind, so they're always throwing. So I think that the Chiefs gave up the most passing touchdowns in the NFL this year. I think a lot of that's because they're always up 21-0, and the other team has to throw. You're like you said earlier with the Eagles. It's 24-8 at halftime. That's not a complete blowout. So maybe the other team's trying to keep their game plan. I definitely think, and the Chiefs defense, let's be honest, has been on point in the playoffs and towards the end of the season. So I think they're peaking at the right time. I don't see it being a blowout in that range just because the Eagles, God, they have 3 solid running backs. One, I think Kenneth Gainwell is way underrated. Not only the running game but the passing game. 2 amazing wide receivers and a great tight end and a dual threat quarterback. So I think the Chiefs are going to struggle to handle all of that. But yeah, no, I don't think the Chiefs defense is nearly as bad as their statistics made them out, and I think they're hot at the right time.
Yeah. By the way, interestingly, both teams are below 500 against the spread this year.
That is pretty interesting, actually.
The Chiefs are 7-12 against the spread. And the Eagles are 8-9 against the spread, despite both of them basically being 14-3 in the regular season.
Yeah, I'm excited about this game. I think it could be either team. I don't think it's lopsided at all. Looking at some of these props, guys, I'll throw a few quick fires at you here. Some that seem very interesting, the receiving yards props, testing the Chiefs' defense a little bit. What are your thoughts on Devontae Smith over 61.5 and A.J. Brown over 71.5? Because on the playbook on Better Sports Network, we're doing a little prop draft here, and I actually took the over on 61.5, thinking the targets are going to be there for Smith once again, and that he's going to be able to get the yardage, and he could certainly do it knowing him on 3 plays.
I'm more likely to do Devonta Smith over 61.5 than A.J. Brown over 71.5.
Right. So you're saying I picked the right one then?
I think a lot of it comes down to Snead. If he plays, if he doesn't play, I like both the overs. I think A.J. Brown is also kind of the vein of the Odell Beckham kind of guys who like the big stage. He wants to light up. And he, if you think Devonta Smith can do it in 3 catches, A.J. Brown could do it in 2. So I think there's a really good chance of both of them being over. The other reason, Jalen Hurts did not light up the scoreboard in passing yards this year, but after those 2, and obviously Goddard, it's not like there's other wide receivers they're throwing to. It's not like the Chiefs have 4, 5, 6 guys that they throw the ball to. Quez Watkins is their 3rd receiver. What do you have? 19 catches this year? I mean, there's not a lot outside of those 2 guys, which is a lot of the reason I like the overs.
In fairness, in the NFC Championship game, Jalen Hurts threw it to 7 different dudes, but only 2 of them had more than 3 targets. Like Dallas Goedert had 6, and A.J. Brown had 8. and then Devonta Smith was at 3. But his 3 targets with 2 catches produced. He led the Eagles in receiving yards with 36.
1 catch. The other one was not a catch.
I knew it. I was waiting for that.
Right.
I get
Oh,
I mean, that's fair. His
I know.
is actually.
I'm only kidding.
we're gonna be able to see every single angle, including the angles we don't want to see of these players in this game. Let me tell you, you're gonna be seeing questionable catches. All of a sudden, you're gonna be seeing quick highlight packages of different angles of the review. That can't happen again. What happened in the NFC Championship?
I mean, when the guy gets up and he's like, run the play really fast, that's not an indication to anyone that probably he didn't catch it.
Yeah, I know, right?
If the guy who caught it is like, oh, let's do this really fast, I mean, that maybe is your first clue that he knows he didn't catch it.
What was
that
like
happened in the AFC Championship game too? One of the guys made a play, and you could see the offense was hurrying, and Romo was like, I think they should review this every time they hurry. It's like they're not in a hurry-up spot. It's not a 2-minute drill. They have timeouts. Like every time they hurry, it should suggest you should challenge.
Ryan, what was because I believe this game aired still during dry January for you.
Yes, it did.
So
yes, it
I
did.
got to ask you then, what was your reaction when you saw that play and then all of a sudden the broadcast was questioning it a little bit? Were you flipping out? Were you standing up at the TV? Did you think it was a catch?
I did. And, I saw the thing with Smith and I saw him hurrying up and, in my head, I thought what I just said, but I have a lot of faith in the Kyle Shanahan and the coaching staff. So I'm like, all right, so maybe they didn't see something. And then later on, and of course I was, pissed because then they went and scored a touchdown. But later on, someone was like, I can't remember who it was on Twitter, was like, you have to at least challenge it. First half timeouts aren't as important as second half timeouts. And I'm like, makes a lot of sense, between that and the guy. So at the time I was just upset. And obviously once you saw it, then, you're mad. And then 2 seconds later, my quarterback's elbow got torn off. So it really didn't matter after that. But at the time of the play, I wasn't that upset, no. But later on when I thought about it more, I was like, yeah, damn, they probably should have challenged that.
Amazing.
But let's go the other angle on the receiving stuff. Are we fully trusting Jalen Hurts' shoulder?
I haven't seen any reason not to in the last 2 weeks.
Right.
I mean, he hasn't had to use it is the point. Like, what happens when he has to use it?
I'm sure he's keeping it loose. You have to be thinking that he's keeping it loose somehow.
Oh, I don't think he's sitting there with it like in a sling and then he's going to unsling, like,
It's not like Rookie of the Year where the tendons come back too tight, It's,
or the guy who shows up in the wheelchair at the WWE deal and, like, we don't have
with Kevin Nash and then he stands up
yeah,
from the wheelchair.
We don't have a Willis Reed moment coming, right? Like,
here comes Willis.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, he hasn't been forced to throw 30 or 35 times to keep up with on offense. Like, he can use, like, what happens if the legs don't move the ball as well as they think and they get into long situations and he has to throw, and now you're talking he's throwing it 30 times. Are we trusting that he can do that?
Think if they
it's a Super Bowl. They got a
right.
choice.
You're all at this point.
I mean, sure, it's the same logic in the World Series. Like, you've got no more innings to throw for another.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's telling me 50 times, 30 times. Yeah, I think I don't think they'll. I don't even know that they would stop running. I mean, unless they got maybe behind 3 touchdowns. But they're really effective running the ball. So I don't know. I think they would have to get down pretty significantly to abandon running the ball. It's really a lot of what they do.
I mean, yeah. And by the way, in the 2 playoff games, Hurts has thrown it 24 and 25 times, but he's still only topped out at 150 something yards each time.
Mahomes' line is at 38.5 for pass attempts. I've been watching that one too.
I would go over.
Yeah, I'm thinking he's going to be in throw mode a lot too.
I mean, they don't run it. They as creative as Andy Reid can get, they don't run the ball. Like they just don't. I can pull up the sheet that I track these things with, but like they during the regular season, even when they were riding Pacheco, like rushing attempts per game, the Chiefs had 24.5 rushing attempts per game, which ranked 25th in the league in the regular season. The Eagles had 32, which ranked third in the league.
One of the many reasons why Pacheco's rushing yards prop on DraftKings is at 48.5, and that's it.
Yeah, also, by the way, in terms of that passing attempts prop, you want to guess how many times a game the Chiefs passed it in the regular season on average?
I'm going to guess 42.
38.3.
Wow.
That line is sitting right on their seasonal average.
Damn.
It's Vegas knows what to do.
Total. I mean, you're right. They don't run as much here. If I'm sitting here saying that I'm thinking there's going to be points scored in this game, it's going to be Mahomes. And then Mahomes engineering that over for me if I want to go that direction.
I mean, Mahomes threw it 43 times in the AFC Championship game.
Right. We'll have to see what happens there. We'll have to see. Well, Ryan, you were talking about the game that you actually went part of it creating fantasyalarm.com here because people could get involved and they can win prizes here. I don't know if this is what you want to bring to the family table, but you are the mastermind behind a way for some of our family members to win the Super Bowl as well.
That's right. The Fantasy Alarm Big Game Contest. Go to fantasyalarm.com/big game. I believe there's 32 prop questions and then a tiebreaker. The winner, the $250, second place, a year subscription, third place, a 3-month subscription, which can turn into a lot of money if you play it right with our advice. So yeah, go out and check that out. We got a good number of people in there so far, but more the merrier, and show that you got you know what's going to happen. It's all the classics. The coin toss is in there, halftime is in there, Gatorade is in there, lots of game props too. Like I'm sure Mahomes, I don't remember them off the top of my head, even though I created it. Mahomes passing yards, Hurts rushing yards.
Did you include any Jackson Mahomes props?
Oh God, no. I saw some other video of him the other day. Good Lord.
If somebody had sent him one of those questions, he would have office spaced his computer.
I would have. And we have the fun ones like what's going to be the first car commercial, the first beer commercial, the first sports book commercial. We've gotten to that point now.
Number of times Patrick Mahomes or Jackson Mahomes is shown on camera during the game. Put the line at 3.5.
His wife is shown more than his brother.
They're probably sitting together.
God, could you imagine that stupid conversation? Dear God.
Oh boy, that'll be fun there. 3.5 is the line for that. All right, Ryan, what are you bringing to the table?
It's kind of something we don't think about a lot. I know it's in a lot of our articles, but we talk a lot about the fun in the Super Bowl. But just remember, bet within your means. Don't go crazy betting, money you don't have or can't afford to lose. Especially with the Super Bowl. Don't bet your taxes. A lot of these are you're betting on a coin toss. Like, don't be dumb. Just bet smart. Bet for fun. Bet a couple dollars just to get. If you win $10, that's exciting. Don't be crazy this week. As much as we all like talking about betting, and that's become a lot of what this industry revolves around. Be smart.
When you said before that the winner of the Fantasy Alarm Big Game Contest gets $250, I started all of a sudden growing hair back on top of my head for the first time in 18 years. So that's what gets me sized, man. $250, I'll take it, bro.
There you go. Enter up, man.
Yeah. See, and that's a big thing too, because we talk about the coin toss being part of the questionnaire that you're going to fill out when you sign up for the Big Game Contest. But when you're betting on it, there's no skill in that. There's a difference between gambling and wagering. Wagering to me is a calculated bet. We can find a trend that just makes sense. We see past statistics and something like the coin toss. There's no advantage. You're putting your money and it's being held hostage above you and you're tempting fate. Yes, it's a 50-50 chance, but there's no skill in that. You don't know. Like Selz, you're like the Schwab. Is there any skill whatsoever in betting the coin toss? Like the frequency or the minor weight differences between one side? There's none of that, right?
It doesn't even matter. Like, you can't even look at the past because it has nothing to do with what happens on Sunday.
every coin toss is an individual event. So even if you say, oh, it's been heads 8 times in a row, okay, it literally does not matter statistically what the past one is, because every coin toss, like every roll of the dice, is an independent event. So therefore, statistically, the past has no basis for what's going to happen in the future. I can say that odds are if you flip a coin 100 times, you will almost assuredly get a 50-50 or very close to 50-50 split. If you want to sit there and flip one 100 times in a row, go for it. But statistically, you're just as likely to bet $2 on both sides of it just to cover the other bet. And then that's pointless.
Don't gamble. Don't gamble. Stop gambling.
Well, not
It's
on
your
the
money.
toss. I mean,
Yes. Well, that's the thing. That's a gamble
like
right
a
there.
player prop, or pick the line of the game if you're going to do it. And again, don't do it with money you don't have. Don't go,
Right.
ooh, I just got my tax return. Let's go. No, that's a stupid idea. That's a terrible, terrible idea to do. Put that in savings or pay off stuff you've been, or just go with your plan for whatever you were going to do with that. Don't bet money you don't have. Don't bet your mortgage. Don't bet rent. Don't bet food money. Don't bet egg money, for God's sakes.
And we talk a lot of wagering here, and especially on the site as well, and in a lot of our podcasts and everything. And that's just, we do that because that's the direction sports has gone with the legalization of sports gambling. But that doesn't mean we're sitting here on our fat stacks of cash betting the $1,000 every game. For me personally, and I'll be honest, most of my bets, I don't bet a lot. I talk a lot of NBA player props. I'm not betting all those player props. There's suggestions, and then I bet maybe 1 or 2 of them, or 3 max. I max myself because I want to be able to build my bankroll slowly when it comes to that. It's the DFS mentality as well. So when we're talking about all this wagering and the line and everything like that to get perspective, we're not sitting there putting $100 bets here like that. It's no laser show with that. So we're making calculated risks with our money. The stupid coin toss is not that. That is you putting your money. It's not. It's not at all. People just want to get involved and have fun. That's not fun to me. I don't want to suggest that. There's nothing that we can do, no research that proves otherwise.
Agreed. If you want to bet things, bet the ones that are backed by research. This guy has this many yards. Statistically, these people give him. And even then, it's a gamble because you don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
Dudes get hurt and no, they won't refund your money on an injury. So please stop asking them to do it on Twitter. I'm flippant. Hey, this guy got hurt. Can I refund all my Niners bets? No, that's the chance you take when you friggin' gamble.
Right.
Like, if you're not comfortable with that, don't gamble. Sorry, that's the way it goes.
And speaking of taking a gamble on things, and this is where I'll flow right into what I'm bringing to the family table. NBA, Thursday, because we're recording today on Wednesday, Thursday, the NBA trade deadline passes in the mid-afternoon. A lot of players could be in transit. The storm could be coming. But what that also indicates as well is you're going to see a lot of lesser-known players have short-term value. And I love hanging with you all in the Fantasy Alarm NBA Discord. I really do. I love talking basketball with everybody. I'll talk basketball with anybody. But here's the thing. If you're thinking of dropping one of your stud multi-category producers off your team for maybe a guy who for 2 games sees his minutes boosted to 30 to 35, maybe scores over 20 points, while players that were traded from their team are in transit and players being returned to their team are in transit, don't drop your star players for the nice piece of shiny new toy. It's not the shiny new toy. It's deceiving you. It's fake. It's the value will completely deceive you because those rotations will start to settle in again to the players that were traded for, unless you know that player is going to be waived. So an example, don't drop someone like Draymond Green, for instance. Not like you would, but don't drop a Draymond Green if the Warriors if the Warriors traded part of their team away or anything, or somebody else traded part of their team away, and all of a sudden Wes Matthews becomes very valuable for a few games. Don't get fooled. I feel like I'm going to be talking to a lot of people about, hey, just hang in there. I know we're seeing the production. You want the production, you need it. You got to still be patient, because between this and the All-Star break, you're going to see rotations start to reset a little bit. Look for those trends. Look for the minutes. Look for the consistency. You want to see 20 minutes at least, at minimum, for a true rotation commitment. This is my opinion. That's a true rotation commitment to me. I'm seeing some guy play 30 minutes for 2 games and then goes back down. That's not long-term value. That's a bad trend. Unlike the coin toss for the Super Bowl, which has absolutely no trends whatsoever, this does. So just be mindful and don't drop and don't overthink it with your fantasy basketball teams. You fought this hard already. We're almost there. Let's stick together. And if you need any help, just hit me up in the Fantasy Alarm NBA Discord. I'm serious. I'll talk basketball with anyone. I would brush my teeth to that crap. I love talking NBA with anyone, and not enough people love talking NBA. Talk to me. I'll help. Selz, your turn.
That was passionate. I will talk NASCAR and F1 with anybody if
Yes, you will.
NASCAR season is coming up. We just had the Clash, or as it was known, bumper cars in the Coliseum. And after the Super Bowl, Daytona 500 rolls around, and then we're going, folks. We get 1 weekend off. It's Father's Day weekend in June. Get 1 weekend off between February 19th and like November 6th. So
Two, actually.
Well, the All-Star race.
Thank you. You tell people it doesn't matter.
It doesn't. I mean, to the guy that wins it and gets $1 million check, I'm sure it matters. That's a pretty nice check. And the team gets some money, and the crew chief or the crew, pit crew guys get some money. But for DFS, it's a crapshoot like the Clash was basically. Okay, 2 weekends, but whatever. It's 2 weekends off between February 19th and like November 6th. And Dan Malin and myself are back. We got the podcast. We got playbooks for trucks, Xfinity Cup Series. We got core plays coming, which, by the way, the year we had the core plays 2 years ago, we were rolling. We had people winning like thousands of dollars every week for the first, for a huge chunk of the season. And it started with me hitting on Daytona. So I have a read for that place. You should probably check out my content. It's coming the week after the Super Bowl. We got betting pieces on PicksWise for Cup and F1 stuff. And by the way, rules for betting NASCAR: don't bet props. Just bet outright winners, because everything in NASCAR is a crapshoot. So don't go nuts every week. Bet a couple of bets every week. And yes, for those of you that wonder how you can be, I see this on Twitter all the time with some of my friends in the betting NASCAR community who, last year went 18-60 on their bets and they finished up 65 units. They're like, how could that possibly be true? Because NASCAR winners pay a lot more than anything else. The favorite to win the Daytona 500 right now is going off at plus 1,200. That's the favorite. Okay? For a normal NASCAR race, the favorite typically goes off at about plus 300 and everybody else falls in line. So if you hit a guy like Eric Almirola at New Hampshire 2 years ago, who I hit going off at plus 8,000, which is 80-1, if you bet 6 other bets that week and you hit the 80-1 guy, you make money and you go 1-6 on your bets. That's how, because NASCAR odds are huge. So we've got that rolling out for you. We got baseball draft guide content still coming out. Colby and I are going to have another podcast out next week. We've got a whole bunch of stuff. I got prospect ranking updates happening all throughout the year, dynasty ranking stuff. So yeah, we got a whole lot of stuff coming. NASCAR and baseball season are getting going here, and they don't really stop until the fall. So you're here with me all year. That's how it works.
Yes, absolutely. Like it or not, you're stuck with Matt Selz and Dan Malin when it comes to NASCAR. By the way, Dan Malin is going to have a very nice, when it comes to his bankroll, Selz, if it's pretty hefty, he can thank the Royal Rumble pool for that. Guy slayed the Royal Rumble pool, won more money in that than I think anyone has ever won in a single Royal Rumble pool, and I've been doing this thing for 7 years. So, Dan Malin, if you're listening, mazel tov and congratulations. Just, wow, amazing. Ryan Hallam, give him a follow on Twitter at Fighting Chance. Give Matt Selz a follow at The Selzman. Yours truly at Fenstey Sports. And as we always say, a family that sticks together, wins together. Enjoy the Super Bowl.